This is a bunker assault mission. It's all about bringing heavy tanks to punch through a static defense line. It is perfect if you have a new mainline battle tank like Predator or a Fire Prism that you've just finished, but it's your battle so you can use whatever strange miniatures you have. My fan-made scenario works for 10th or 9th edition, and I have details for using it in either. It adapts a very popular scenario from 4th edition if you can remember that far back. The mission scales and can be used at any size, but at the smaller scale it can also be broken if you really try to make it break. As this is a casual friendly narrative game, don't try and break it. This is about having fun for both players. As with any battle scenario, there are several points to go through: the battle size points and command points, army selection, table size, victory conditions, game length, terrain and battlefield setup, and who takes the first turn, and deployment. The main battle size I designed it for were 500 points and 1000 points, so you can get in some quick games and then if you wanted, swap attacker and defender. At 500 points, each side starts with 3 command points. At higher points, values start with 6 command points, and as in the normal Arks of Omen rules, gain 1 command point on your own player turn only. Remember that for the Arks of Omen scenarios, they specify that you gain 1 each player turn. This follows rules as written for Arks of Omen. If you are playing this in 10th edition, use the normal, much lower level of command points to start with and gain each turn. If you are playing at 500 points, no leaders are needed for this mission. It could be a raid or representative of part of a much larger battle. This probably isn't going to be led by a chapter master, but by a veteran sergeant instead, if you can remember far enough back to when armies were actually led by veteran sergeants. If you want to use a character, go for it. At 1000 points and higher, use normal army selection rules. At that size you are more likely to have a war boss and not just a nob leading the attack or garrison. Speaking of, at this point you want to decide who is the attacker and who takes the role of defender, because that affects army selection. For the defender, a minimum of 1/5 of their points must be spent on bunkers and destroyable fortifications. For example, a 90-point bunker, which is toughness 8, 12 wounds and a 3+ save, it can carry up to 10 infantry, like a transport vehicle. For 10th edition, I don't currently know if there will be rules for bunkers already provided. I haven't seen index cards for them. You could use faction-specific rules, such as the Hammerfall bunker for the Space Marines. If not, for 100 points, here is a made-up stat sheet for the 10th edition bunker. It is toughness 9, has 12 wounds, 3+ save, can't move, and has firing deck 5, so 5 models of the 12 inside can fire out. It has objective control 4, which will be useful for the endgame victory conditions and makes it so it's a good idea for the attacker to actually destroy them. It has a leadership of 5+. If it confuses you as to why I've given a bunker a leadership value, in 10th edition, if a vehicle is below half wounds, they can still take battle shock and lose their objective control. When more 10th edition rules are out, additional testing will be required to see if this is too low or too high. The attacker has to spend 1/5 of their points on vehicles with anti-tank weaponry. Some agreement with your opponent may be required to decide what is suitable for this role. If you have a small collection, go with what you have, and some proxy may be needed, like saying your Lehman Russ has a Vanquisher cannon instead of an Executioner plasma cannon. To explain the table size and deployment, I am going to start up the 2nd edition Battle-O-Tron. Takes a while. Just give it a minute. So how are you doing today? Oh, it's on. Okay. For table size and deployment, you will want a 60 inches by 44 inches table in 10th edition, or if you're doing a 500 points mission, use a 4x4 table. That's 30 inches times 44 inches for 9th edition at 500 points or 1000 points, and if you were doing a larger game, then use the recommended table size for that. Deployment zones are like this, with a 24-inch space separating the armies, but with a point 18 inches away for the attacker. Cover will be relatively sparse as the attacker crosses no man's land, so they need the short distance to help them. With either size it is possible to charge on turn 1, if you have the right units, and the defender deploys far enough up. On the smaller board for 500 points in 9th edition, this is what the deployment zone looks like on a 30 by 44 inch table. If you only have this size board, feel free to deploy on the short edges instead. The purpose of this battle is to hold the defender's deployment zone, so the gap should be short. I don't want to have it like a 3rd edition breakthrough mission, where the attacker has to get off the other side of the table, with a 36-inch gap to that, and if the defender doesn't turn up, then the attacker basically loses, since they can't charge and then leapfrog on. If your units move 6 inches, as they did in 3rd edition, then infantry could not get to the opposite side of the board and off the table edge, moving at their top speed after 6 turns. As the battle lasts 5 turns, the attacker's units, even the ones starting 24 inches away, could feasibly walk into the enemy's deployment zone around terrain without having to advance. It lets slow armies like Necrons still play as attacker. So considering deployment zones done, let's look at the mission briefing and hopefully this minimizes without crashing. Okay, good. The mission briefing. What the purpose is for the 2 armies and how you win. There is no secondary mission or gambit. If you don't know what a gambit is, that means you're watching this before 10th edition is released. Isn't time weird? The 9th edition victory conditions. At the end of 5 turns, the army with the most units in the defender's deployment zone wins. Ignore the objective secured rule for this. In 10th edition, treat the defender's deployment zone as one big objective, and the army with the highest objective control within the defender's deployment zone wins. Remember, this is why the bunkers have an objective control, so the attacker has to destroy them, and they help the defender's unit stay alive. Terrain in Battlefield next. Let's restore the Battle-O-Tron. I have used some guidelines from Horus Heresy to help with this part. The defender sets up 2 ruins or hills in their half of the table for every 1000 points of game size. If playing at 500 points, also do 2 ruins or hills. In 9th edition, they have the traits Obscuring and Soft Cover. In 10th edition, runes give +1 save up to maximum 3+, and Plunging Fire. Hills use the standard rules for hills, but I would also give it the Plunging Fire trait, just so the high ground means more. The reason for this is to give the defender more defensive terrain, and tactics-wise, it is up to the defender if they want to hide the bunkers behind buildings, to keep them safer, but of course that means that putting a unit inside to be protected and still shoot out is not as valuable. The attacker gets to set up 2 terrain pieces for every 1000 points in their player's army, but at least 2. They want to be around 6 by 6 inches, and should be something like trees or ruins as your terrain collection limits. These should have the light cover and be obscuring in 9th edition, that keeps it simple. If you prefer, have dense cover and obscuring in 9th edition, but for 10th edition, use the rules for woods. This lets the attacker hide most of their army, but not necessarily all of their army, before the battle starts. Then there is one more part to the terrain, and this is to add some small thematic pieces like individual craters, a trench line in the attacker's deployment zone that they could have rushed out of, the occasional pipe, individual trees and statues and parts of a ruined wall to make the battlefield look alive and match what you want. If this is a gritty World War I style trench warfare, have craters and individual trees, perhaps Nurgle trees if the Death Guard are being attacked. If it is a Necron enclave being attacked, have Necron or Egyptian style pillars and power lines or pipes around no man's land. If it is an Orc bunker, have scrap piles on the way as the attackers come through the outskirts of the Orc workshop or encampment. Be aware that the attacker takes the first turn, unless you want to try rolling off, but with most of the attacking army probably starting hidden, there isn't much benefit to the defender going first. For unit deployment, alternate. Starting with the defender who puts down all their bunkers first in one go, and then the attacker places a unit, and you alternate until all units are deployed. I've tried it a few times with different armies and using the 500 points and 1000 point sizes, and find it works okay. Neither side has more of an advantage, just different advantages. Feel free to theory disagree in the comments, or join my Discord, link in the description, and talk about it in the 40k section. This covers all of the rules I think you need for the scenario. Feel free to modify some parts of these rules if you like. You are the ones playing it. And it should be able to adapt to work at any size. So let's have a look at this on the Battle-O-Tron, but way larger, so it goes up to 3000 points. Wait. Please update to Windows 98. No, I don't think I will. Instead, I will show you a recap so that if you think this is a great idea, you don't have to watch the whole video again to find the rules. Not that the video is particularly long, but if you are going to do that and skip to the end, please put a like on the video. It will show up in your liked playlist, making it easy to find, and will help offset the algorithm if you come back a second time but only watch the few seconds at the end. That was the 9th edition steps. Here are the 10th edition steps. Pause the video, of course. On computer, that is the K key, if you didn't know that. So, my darlings and viewers, have a great day playing this scenario in 40k.